So continuous Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. So the topic, same topic as we started last time, and it was laws of a primary and subordinate food. So just to summarize, so we said when a person says a blessing on a primary food, it automatically would cover the subordinate food, and same with the blessing. You say only one blessing, and it should cover both foods. Okay, so halacha number 2, if somebody's following, page 238. So it says, Kitzur knows number of conditions necessary for above rule to apply, but this applies only if he eats the primary food first and then subordinate one, and not in any other way around. Okay, that's I mean, on one hand it's obvious, but on the other hand it's not so obvious. So if a person eats two foods, and second is subordinate meaning like French fries and ketchup, let's say, right? So this ketchup is covered by the blessing on a French fry. But if you start with ketchup, it's not covered. It's not, right? So that's what it says. But let's see from the beginning with commentaries. But this applies only if he eats this primary food first and then subordinate one. And certainly if he eats them at the same time. Okay, so meaning if he eats the third time, he put this piece of French fries into ketchup, no problem, right? Eats it together, no problem. And not other way around, meaning other way around if he eats ketchup before the French fries. The case of eating the subordinate food first follows the primary food is discussed in following sieve. Okay, no problem. We're going to get it. Okay. Furthermore, it applies only if at the time he recited the blessing of primary food, he had in mind to eat subordinate food as well, or he was accustomed to eat this subordinate food after the primary food, which is equivalent to having this specifically in mind. Okay, so let's do this paragraph. It's a general halacha, so we're going to explain. It's not only pertaining to primary and subordinate, but to everyone. So one more time from the beginning and explanation. Furthermore, this applies only if at the time he recited the blessing on the primary food, he had in mind to eat subordinate foods as well. So it's a general law. So it applies even, for example, I have apple, right? So I start eating apple, and I have more apples in the refrigerator. So if I have in mind, so I'm going to eat this apple maybe a little later if I finish this one, if I want to. So that second apple is covered, right? And same with all other things. So, but if it did not mean to eat the second apple, so it's not covered, right? Or as it says here, right? Primary and subordinate food. So if they are like this French fries and ketchup in front of him, there is no brainer, since it's on a plate. So for sure they're covered. But I would say, so even if he forgot to put it on the table, let's say, I think that's a better example. And this French fries is this ketchup is in a refrigerator, right? So he started eating French fries, and then he decided, I want ketchup, right? So there is no problem. It's still covered. Why? Even though he did not have in mind. Why? Because that's his habit, is also eat them together. So if you are accustomed to do something together, then it is covered. That's why when you say blessing, for example, you have a meal without bread, right? And you say shechakol on something, right? Let's say on a piece of cheese, you say. So even the coffee is not there, so it is covered, because why? It's like that you always drink coffee like for the breakfast, always. So when you say the blessing shechakol on something else, and coffee was not even made, so for sure that's what you meant. It's also to cover coffee as well. Commentary. If he did not have in mind to eat the subordinate food, it is not exempt with the blessing of the primary food. So meaning if it's not your custom to do that. Okay, so this subordinate food is not covered. And so two things you did not have in mind, and it's not your custom. Okay. Mishnah Brura 2:12 rules that in such a case, one recites the Shechakol blessing on subordinate food, regardless of the food's usual blessing. See next sieve. So it's not so simple. It's very interesting. So Mishnah Brura said that you missed this halacha, right? And you did not mean the secondary food, this subordinate food in mind. You didn't have this in mind to cover. So you say shechakol. Okay, so and shechakol, sometimes it's not the appropriate blessing, but you still say shechakol because the way I understand, I mean we're going to see that, but the way I understand, because it's not this food, it does not have like a separate importance, right? It's just a secondary. We know it's secondary, but we cannot eat without blessing. That's why I say shechakol. Okay, so third, it applies only when he eats a subordinate food at the same time he eats a primary food. As to oppose to the case where he went in the interim, there is between eating the primary and subordinate food to another room, in which case he must recite the blessing on subordinate food as well. And he gives an extreme example, but let's see. Okay, but it's extreme, but very, very good example. So let's see. The third, it applies when he eats the subordinate food at the same time as the primary food, right? So I would say better example. So switch from this French fries and ketchup to cereal with milk, right? So you say blessing on, let's say cereal is misogynous, let's say. Have to check, but let's say it's misogynous. So you say misogynous, and it covers the milk. So milk is subordinate. But if you start eating cereal and then you start drinking milk, so milk is not covered. Of course, you have to say separate blessing. But one second. But he gives a different example. Just 1 second. The third, it applies when only when he eats the subordinate at the same time he eats primary food, as opposed to the case where he went to interim in the interim and there is between the eating primary and subordinate food to another room. So he started eating the cereal and he went to another room and came back and went to drink milk. Okay, so it's not so meaning you had to start after you said blessing, you had to start eating them together. Since you did not, so you have to say separate blessing. In which case he must recite the blessing on subordinate food as well, even though you're going to eat them together right now, but it's already too late, so you have to say the blessing on the milk. Commentary. This condition is a reference to the Halachos governing the requirement to recite new blessing when one changes his place after reciting the blessing. These halacha have been detailed above in the 50. Okay. 50. Okay. See Mishnah Brura, etc. Okay. No problem. So once we go to the different room, even though it's not so simple, so the just to remind us, it was some time ago, but just to remind us, so if it's only for a short period of time, and you intend to return, and you were not so busy, you did not divert your attention, you only had to take a few things from a different room, you came back, okay, no problem. The blessing is still working. But if you went there for a long time, and you were preoccupied with something else, so for sure the blessing is no longer working, right? Or person went outside, also a problem, right? So it would be interruption of the blessing. Okay, so continue. Halacha number 3. Kitzur addresses the first condition of the previous sieve. Similarly, if the first condition was not satisfied, and the first and he first eats subordinate. Okay. So first condition was that at least he start with subordinate, or eat them together, right? Not subordinate. at least he starts with primary, or start with the primary plus subordinate at the same time. So if he starts with subordinate, this rule does not apply. So one more time. Similarly, if the first condition was not satisfied, and he started eating subordinate, so he has a cereal with milk, and he started eating, drinking milk. I mean, eating with a spoon. Okay. And afterward he eats a primary. For example, if he wishes to drink wine or liquor, and in order not to drink it's on empty stomach, literally empty heart, he first eats a small amount of food. In this case, he must also recite the blessing on subordinate food. Okay. So what he's trying to say here? So if he eats a subordinate before the primary, so this law does not work. So example that he gives is for example, if he wants to drink wine, that's I guess like some strong wine or something, or liquor. So and after that to remove the sharp taste, he wants to eat something like it's not for the food itself, but it's for the sharp taste, to remove the sharp taste. So in this case, this food is going to be subordinate, right? But if he does it the opposite, so if he eats some food and then he wants to drink the liquor, so of course the subordinate food is not covered. So it's not subordinate because he must make a blessing before he eat any food. So one more time, for example, if he wishes to drink wine or liquor, and in order not to drink it on empty stomach, he first eats small amount of food, whatever food is it, right? In this case, he must also recite the blessing or subordinate food. So Kitzur says subordinate, but in this case is no. It was intended as subordinate to begin with, but now it's not so subordinate. Okay, just to remind us, we don't drink wine starting tonight until Shabbos. Now, and don't eat meat. Now, even though the food that he is eating, so that he should not drink on empty stomach, requires own blessing, nevertheless, since now that food is merely subordinate to a drink. Some authorities say that it descends from its regular status with regard to the blessing, and recite only shechakol blessing on it. That's okay. There are, however, those authorities who dispute this ruling and maintain that the subordinate retains its standard blessing. In order to remove oneself from the situation of doubt, one should first drink some of the primary, there is wine or liquor, and recite the blessing on it, in order to exempt the subordinate. For when the primary food is eaten first, no blessing is required on a subordinate food. Okay, it's a little hard, but when we read, but we're going to explain it in simple words. So we're going to keep explaining on this an example that Kitzur said. So basically, it's hard liquor. So usually, person drinks and then eats something to remove this sharp taste. Okay, so that's so in this case, this food is a subordinate. So he's not eating for the food itself, but he eating this food because of this drink. Okay. Okay. So now the question that we're going to see in a Kitzur, what blessing to make. So if it's usually like this food should be subordinate, and if he would eat it intake in the right order, he would not say any blessing. So according to the previous sif, we said he should say shechakol, right? Because it's subordinate food. But according to second opinion, and I think we should go by that second opinion, we're going to see why. Just say the regular blessing on that food. Okay, so let's see from the beginning, or the or do the proper way, the proper sequence. Just drink little. So in my mind, like, why would he not drink like even few drops of wine? So we have to say bracha reshana, the beginning blessing on any amount. So even if you drink 2 drops of liquor, you say blessing on the liquor, and keep in mind that you also want to cover this the subordinate food, and it's covered. Okay, so let's see. Now, even though the food that he's eating, so that he should not drink on empty stomach, requires an over blessing nevertheless. So of course, I mean, the intention of this food is not to hurt the stomach, right? So he would not drink on empty stomach. It is like in his mind it's subordinate, but it's not, right? Since now the food is merely subordinate to drink, right? Some authorities say that it descends to from its regular status with regard to the blessing, right? So since it is subordinate, as we explained before, and it loses its status because it's not so important, as we said, it's only because of mistake on his part, I guess, right? So we say shechakol, I mean, according to this opinion, and we recite only the blessing, shechakol, blessing on it. So let's see the commentary and try to understand. Commentaries say, although the blessing on primary food covers the subordinate food, when one eats subordinate food afterwards, right? So if he eats primary food subordinate, there is no problem whatsoever. Okay, it's covered. But when one eats subordinate food nevertheless, when he eats subordinate food first, the blessing recited afterwards on a primary food cannot exempt what he ate previously. Right, so it's actually a famous question. I mean, I think even in this class, people ask a few times. So you start eating your apple, and you realize that you forgot the blessing. So what do? Right, so just to remind us what we said. So if it's possible for you to remove this food, let's say there is no gas, only yourself, right? So if it's possible to remove the food and then start eating again the same food, that's what you must do. Remove the food. Let's say you just bit the apple, right? So you say the blessing, and then you start eating the apple. But if you have, I don't know, you already chew the apple, right? So you're not going to remove and start eating again. So in this case, you just swallow. You swallow completely, and then you say the blessing and start eating again, right? I mean, not start, continue eating. Right, so but you cannot say the blessing on the food. So that's the second question that's famously asked. So you cannot say the blessing on a food that you already ate. It's too late, right? The after blessing, it's possible. It's possible if you forgot to say the after blessing and initially, and there is still time, so you can say after blessing. But initial blessing, it's too late, right? So that's the idea here, right? So if you say the blessing on this wine or liquor, you cannot cover whatever you ate before that, and we're not allowed to eat or drink before making any blessing. That since one may not partake of food without reciting blessing, a blessing must be recited when partaking the subordinate food. Mishnah Berurah 2:12:9. Okay, exactly as we explained. Right, so you cannot eat without blessing, and you already start eating in the wrong quarter, so just say the blessing. Nonetheless, since the food is not being eaten for its own sake, right? Whatever food is it, he's not eating before because he wants to eat this food, but because of the wine or because of the liquor. Its standard blessing is not appropriate. Okay, therefore he recites all-encompassing blessing shechakol nihiyeh bidvaroi. Right? Translation: through whose word everything came to be. Okay. See Mishnah Berurah 12 and 7. Okay, so that's the opinion. There are, however, those authorities who dispute this ruling and maintain that subordinate retains its standard blessing. So, and it's in same Mishnah Berurah and Shar Tziyum. Okay, so I I would say that's my personal approach. If it's possible, if there is a opinion that you're allowed to say the correct blessing, the original blessing on the food, don't try to memorize all of this intricate details. There is a opinion that you have to say shechapel. Just say the correct blessing and that's it. In order to remove oneself from the situation of doubt, one should first drink some of the primary, there is wine or liquor, and recite the blessing on it. So as we said, that's the perfect scenario, just straight path. As we said, just drink. If it's too strong, drink two drops. That's it. 5 drops, whatever is it. So that's enough. And after that, you can eat. In order to exempt the subordinate, so you drink a few drops in order to exempt the subordinate. For when the primary food is eaten first, no blessing is required on subordinate food. That's a straightforward formula. If you say the blessing on a primary food, again in this example, just to remind us, you're not eating this food for satiation, but to take, but not to drink this liquor on an empty stomach. That's it. That's the case. But if you're also hungry, so that's I'm just adding, right? If you're also hungry, of course you need to say so. So this food is not subordinate. You want to drink this drink, whatever drink, and you want to eat. There is two separate things. You would then this food is not subordinate. Okay. Any questions before we continue? Is it clear?
Hold on.
Yes, go ahead.
So what happens with the blessing over the subordinate food is the same over the liquor. For example, the person is gonna have whiskey, and before the whiskey he gets some cheese. Does the blessing over the cheese cover the whiskey too?
Yes, but in this case, okay, it's amazing question. Thank you very much. It's amazing question. So in this case, he has to explicitly keep in mind, I want to cover whiskey as well, because it is a subordinate food. It's a very good question. So not always it's going to work. For example, I give you just similar example. I think it's very practical. So it says that we have a bowl of fruits right in front of us on the table, and you have there grapes, and you have apples, and you have peaches, right? So there are five species that have a special precedence, right? The species of the fruit that land of Israel is blessed with, right? And one of them is grapes. So it's grapes, pomegranates, dates, and figs, and olives, right? So they have a precedence on or all of them, right? So it's proper, absolutely proper. So if you're going to eat all of this, some of this fruits from your bowl, make a blessing on a grape. Well, one grape is enough. Eat a grape and everything is covered. But if you decided to start with apple, it's not, grapes are not covered. Absolutely not. So unless you have a specific intention that, okay, I'd like to start with apple, but then as a dessert, let's say as my dessert, I'm going to have grapes later. So in this case, yes, although we said it's proper to start with grapes and then you use apples, just one grape is enough. But if you did not do that and you start with apple, you have to have explicit intention to have that I'm going to eat grapes as well. Otherwise, grapes are not covered. So it's a very similar example. Thank you very much. Good question.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we continue? Okay, no problem. So very good question. Thank you. So of course, Kitzur usually that does not go Kitzur he goes on a basic example. So what you ask, it's like a deeper level. That's a different book. Okay. So continue. Number 4. If when eating two foods, his intention is is not solely for one of them, with the other being purely subordinate, but rather he wants to eat both of them. For example, he drinks liquor, and he also eat types of filled pastries, honey cake, preserves, all the like. He must recite a blessing on both. So let's read completely, and then we're going to come back. He should first recite the blessing on pastries or preserves, for they are more significant, and afterwards recite the blessing on the liquor. And thirdly, if he is eating pastries and also drinks coffee, the halacha is that he must recite the blessing on both. There is a first mizoines on a pastries, and afterwards shechakal on coffee. For his intention is for both. So just before we start reviewing this halacha, I would say that this primary, secondary, and primary subordinate is not not very, very common. So more common is this example that Kitzur gives in this sieve number 4, when you actually want both foods, you actually enjoy both of them, different tastes, but you just eating them together. There is no primary or secondary. Maybe you like one more, but it does not cancel out the second one. So let's do it again, and this is okay. So let's see. Sorry. If when eating two foods, his intention is not solely for one of them, with the other purely subordinate, but rather he wants to eat both of them, right? So meaning it's not like this French fries, say ketchup, or this cereal and milk. It's not, right? He's drinking liquor and also eating filled pastries, honey cake. So usually, as we said before about this mizoines part, usually mizoines is never secondary, right? And unless he wants to remove the sharp taste of the liquor, yeah. In this case, even bread is going to be separate, subordinate. But if he eats like not for this reason, so the mizoines is never secondary. Okay. So he also eats this pastry, filled pastry, honey cake, okay, preserves or the like. He must recite the blessing on both. Okay, so say on one and on another. If again, if second one is required the blessing, for example, if he eats preserves, so it depends on a preserve. So if it's a preserve and you see the even the pieces of the fruit, that's you would say restitution. But if it's like a jam, right? So it's you're not going to say, you would say shechakol on it. So one blessing would cover both. So if he drinks this liquor and eat this preserve like that's like completely like one mass, like a jam. So of course you're going to see you say shechakol on both of them. Okay. But if he eats pastry, so of course in this case two separate blessings. Commentary. In this case, he must recite the blessing on the pastries because he eats them for their own sake as well. I mean, because he enjoys them. It's not the one for another. So it's not like milk because otherwise you would not be able to eat the cereal. So that's why you eat milk. That's the only reason, right? So okay. But here you enjoy this pastry as well. Similarly, one who eats bread after liquor, in order to neutralize its effect, is exempt from reciting blessing on the bread only if he is not hungry. So let's say, so what would be the case? Maybe he's in the middle of the meal, right? Without bread meal, not a bread meal, and so he's not hungry, and he drinks some liquor, and it was very sharp. So he wants to take a piece of bread. So in this case, he would not say blessing. But if he's hungry, so in this piece of bread is also eaten for satiation. So of course you need to say the blessing. So okay. So one more time the whole sentence from the beginning so we don't lose it. Similarly, one who eats bread after liquor in order to neutralize its effect is exempt from reciting the blessing on the bread only if he is not hungry, right? So as we said, and is eating minimal amount necessary in order to neutralize the effect of the liquor. So if you need like half of the kizais, so that's it. So if you ate complete kizais or two kizaisim, that's already a problem. You're not eating for the sake to neutralize the effect of the liquor, as they say, but you're actually eating for enjoyment. That's a different story. In this case, you need to say blessing over the bread. Otherwise, it cannot be considered subordinate, right? So if you will continue eating, and a separate blessing is required. So we're not. They just give bread as like extreme example, but it applies to all other foods as well. Since acceptance of one's ultimate intention is often not a simple matter, halachic authorities advise that in order to avoid questions of possible requirements to recite the Al Nitalas Yadayim and Hamotzi blessing, one should avoid eating bread for the purpose of neutralizing the effect of the liquor. See Mishnah Berurah 2:12.5, Rishar Tziyum, chapter 19. So, as always, we always say, don't put yourself in that situation, right? So it's hard, as they say. So one more time, the last sentence. Since a certain one's ultimate intention is often not simple matter, so why am I eating this bread? Halachic authorities advise that in order to avoid question of possible requirement recited Al Nitalas Yadayim. So Al Nitalas Yadayim meaning what, that he's going to eat more than kizais, according to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, but others say he needs to eat kibitz, meaning 2 ounces. 56 grams, if you go in grams, right? In order to say Al Nitalas Yadayim. So don't put yourself in that situation, right? And then say Hamotzi. Okay. So eat something else. Basically, if you know, we were not born exactly yesterday, so you know if it's something sharp, like liquor, like prepare some other food, not bread. If you did not say the blessing on the bread, don't make it subordinate food. That's the bottom line. Continue. He should first recite the blessing on the pastry. So now we're going back to our original case. So he's drinking liquor with the pastries. I would say coffee with a donut or something, right? Maybe it's better for us. More understandable. He should first recite the blessing on the pastries or preserves, right? For their most significant. And after that, recite the blessing on the liquor. Okay, no problem. So in this case, it's no primary, no subordinate. You like both foods. Say the blessing on one, and it should cover. And then they say blessing on another, on the liquor. So and okay. So number 12. This is based on order of precedence of the blessing set forth in the next siman. Okay. The blessing should be recited first on the pastries or preserves, even if the liquor is more desirable to him. See Mishnah Berurah 11:16. So until we get to the next year, we're going to explain. There's priority of blessings. So first, we have a general rule. The more exact, the more precise the blessing is, it takes priority. Right? For example, the most precise blessing is on the bread. So because it covers only specific types of from 5 species of grain, only this is covered, that's it, right? And then misonis, it's very close to bread, right? So we say misonis, and then we say, well, what is more specific is fruit of the tree, right? So you said fruit of the tree. Then what is less specific? I mean, but say specific, fruit of the ground. And the last you say shechakol, and that's how. That's the order we follow if we don't eat bread, for example, but we have several foods that we want to say blessing over. For example, right? So you have morning breakfast. You have your omelet. You have olives, and you have tomatoes. right? So of course it's not one. So I'm talking about all of these things are separate. They're on your plate, on one plate, but you need to make a separate blessing. It's not one. It's not one dish. So one does not cover another. So you say blessing on olives, you say blessing on tomato, and then you say blessing on omelet. So it was. One sec. So okay. So but we're going to talk about it in the next sieve. Okay, no problem. Continue. And certainly he's if he's eating pastries and also drinking coffee, right? So I mean, liquor is more important than coffee. Okay, no problem. So the halacha is that he must recite the blessing on both. There is first mizoines on the pastries, and afterwards shechakol on coffee. Okay, that's a first. It's like a straightforward question. But the famous question that everybody asks, like, if you what happened if you dip your donut, right, into your coffee? So technically, like, coffee is in there. So is coffee covered or not? So coffee is not covered. But our sages say don't put yourself in this questionable situation. So maybe because according to some opinion, maybe coffee is covered, right, if you squeeze, right? So they say make the blessing on donut first, eat a little, whatever a little is, then make a blessing on coffee and drink some coffee. That's it. So and you're all done. So even though you like to dip your donut in the coffee, don't do it. Don't do it initially. Say the blessing, and then you can combine. There is no problem. Okay. Any questions on what we said? Okay. So once again, two different foods, two separate blessings, three separate foods, then not one dish. So three separate blessings. Okay. But if it's one dish, we usually say only one blessing. Continue. Number 5. Thus far, Kitzur has discussed the halachos of primary food exempting the subordinate food, when one food is being eaten as a result of others. Kitzur now goes on to discuss the halachos of primary and subordinate foods as they apply to the mixture of the foods. Oh, okay, that's exactly what we just said. So you have that's exactly what we just said. BeEzrat Dishmaya. So meaning when there is a mixture, you like if it's in one dish, right? But it is a mixture and like of the different elements that require different blessing. So you have to decide what blessing to make. As we said, we say only one blessing. So what would be example? So the example would be you eating salad, right? So there's lettuce and tomatoes, onions, and let's say, and you have shredded cheese, right? So blessing on tomatoes does not cover cheese, right? So how many blessings do you make? So we have to decide what is primary, what is secondary. Okay, because as we said before, you need to make only one blessing. Continue. The rule regarding two types of foods that were cooked together is, so cooked together, as we said in the previous example, if it's in one plate, it does not mean cooked together, right? If each type of food is distinguishable within the mixture, one recite each type of food appropriate blessing. Commentary. This is opinion Chayei Adam. Mishnah Berurah, however, rules that when two distinct types of food are mixed together on a plate and both are significant, one recite only one blessing on the food that constitute the majority. Okay, so we're going to get to the majority, but Kitzur, it goes by opinion of Chayei Adam, but we go by Mishnah Berurah. So as we said, on this mixture, you say only one blessing. He said on a majority, but we're going to see there's like some exceptions. Mishnah Brura in Biur Halacha 2:12:1 advises that one who wishes to be stringent and act in compliance with the opinion of Chaye Adam as well should mash the majority food and mix it with he should mash the minority food and mix it with majority food. He may then recite the blessing on majority food and eat from both together as the Kitzur rules below. I would say that's too much. To go to according to all opinion to mash this minority food, so it's like one mass. So now you're going to make blessing on my majority. Okay, so the Mishnah Brura says do it on majority. That's what we do. Okay. However, if they were mashed and became stuck together, we then follow the majority, and that is which the majority is considered primary. Thus, we recite the blessing upon it, and the other minority is exempt. Okay. So if it's like tight mixture, mashed, right? Mixture. So you say the blessing on majority. But we're going to see there are some exceptions. Number 15 commentary. Mishnah Brura 2:12:1 rules that if one of them is significant and the other one is not, see therefore particulars. So, okay. Only the blessing on significant ingredients is recited, even if it consists minority of the mixture. So I don't want to confuse you, but what it says in this Mishnah Brura 2:12:1, if one is more significant, even though it's minority, you say the blessing on it. So if you have misoinus and it's minority it could be 10%. So it's very much minority. So you say the blessing on that minority, and it covers actually majority. Okay, so that's why I said that there is an exception. So the rule to memorize, I think to make it very easy. So if it's misoinus, it could be cooked, let's say cooked or not cooked misoinus. In that mixture, most likely it's a primary food, unless it's in some negligible amount that only like only few things, like maybe I don't want to put numbers, but very small amount that we can ignore it. But if you feel the taste, for example, barley, like in soup, right? In some soup, you eat barley. Why? To make it so the food the soup would satiate better. And of course you taste the barley. It's not like right, even if it's minority. How much compared to water? It's like, I don't know, maybe 5%, 10%. But you still make the blessing on the barley, and covers the whole food, the whole soup, as Mishnah Brura says. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so we finished. So if there is an important ingredient, so even if it is minority, you say the blessing. So let's summarize before we continue what we said so far. So far we said if it is a mixture, make the blessing on majority, whatever is it. Example, I want to give this example. So you have a fruit salad. So, but in this fruit salad, you can have vegetables in there, right? You have you can have in your fruit salad, you can have a strawberry. Strawberry is a vegetable. So you can say you say you have peaches and strawberries and bananas, right? So peaches you say barepri chayitz, on strawberries you say barepri chadama. So what blessing to make? So in this case you say on a majority, whatever majority is. So even let's say there are peaches and apples and other things, fruits of the tree majority. So you said blessing on the fruits of the tree, and it covers minority, meaning fruits of the ground. Okay, that's first scenario. Second scenario, we said if it is misoinus there, or there is important foods. So what is important foods? This species, as we said, grapes. So grapes take precedence. even though they're minority. Continue, or misones. However, if one of the foods is one of the 5 species of grain, here we go, even if he's a minority of food in mixture, it nevertheless considered primary food of the mixture, as I explained in Siman 48 CF10. See there. Okay, so there is a commentary. So commentary saves us time. But we already said this. This misones takes precedence, even it's as we say, even 10%, 15% doesn't make any difference, because it adds to satiation. 16 commentary. Kitzur explained that due to the inherent importance, the product of the 5 species of grain, so again, wheat, barley, oats, spelt, and rye, is considered primary of the mixture, even if it is constitute only the minority of the mixture, right? Even if it's constitute minority of the mixture, provided that it was added for flavor. Okay. So, we said barley soup, so you don't say misones on a barley soup. You say barapricha dama on this barley. So because it was cooked, right? Just to remind us. Okay, but if the soup has some cooked misones, so you would say barbaremine misones. Okay, like elbow or something, right? Or a pasta or something, right? So you said the blessing on a pasta, even if, as you said, it's only 10%. Continue. Therefore, according to Kitzur, if 2 types mash together, according to Mishnah Brura, they're separate. So we're going to according to Mishnah Brura. So 2 separate things. One recite only baremine misones, regardless of the amount of grain. See also there Mishnah Brura for further discussion. So their further discussion are just as exactly as we said. If it's negligible amount, of course it's like it was. You do not even taste it. So and it's only a few pieces. You don't say baremine misones on it, on the whole mixture. But if it's in more significant amount, again, no numbers. But if you taste the food even a little, so that's already you already can say baremine misones. Okay.